And I am a professional. Sorry, my computer shut off. All right, so good morning, everyone. My name is Dada Ibrahimovic. I am a professional development specialist with the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about supporting student populations, students that are in both foster care and students that are experiencing homelessness. Before we begin, I just want to go through some housekeeping items with you all. So this session is being recorded. It'll be shared after the training ends. If you are having trouble connecting audio through your computer, or maybe one of your colleagues is like, hey, I can't hear her, let them know that they can select the call me option for audio instead. You can also try playing with the audio settings. Usually it's just an output that is not compatible with your computer, and then you have to change the output. If you have any questions during today's session, I am joined by quite a few of my colleagues today. We have the Q&A feature on the bottom right-hand corner with a little question mark. Go ahead and use that for any questions that you have, and we will be able to answer them throughout the session today. You can also view any of our upcoming webinars on isac.org/pd/webinars. Also, we will be giving out continuing education credits and professional development hours for today's webinar. We do just ask that you complete the survey. Today, we're trying something a little bit different. We are not going to be putting a link in the chat. We're going to be using QR codes for that survey instead. But if you're having trouble, using the QR code, you can also email us at our email address, and that'll be posted up at the end of the presentation as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the agenda for today, first we're going to discuss students that are unaccompanied and homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless. Then we are going to discuss students that are in foster care and how to help both of these populations with their transition to post-secondary or into their career. And then finally, we're going to go through some resources as well. Okay, so let's get right into it. So with students that are experiencing homelessness, there are some things to keep in mind that, students that are experiencing homelessness, not every student that is experiencing homelessness will also be unaccompanied, and what that means. So unaccompanied means not being in the physical custody of their parents. But not every student that's experiencing homelessness is unaccompanied, but when they are, they often lack adult support. So because of that, they face educational challenges, especially due to high mobility. So they may be moving around from shelter to shelter, maybe moving around from, aunt's house to friend's house to grandma's house, or whatever the case may be. And if you have students that are in these situations, they may also not even consider themselves homeless or at risk of being homeless, especially in the cases that they are living with family, and the family's not the student's legal guardian through the court, right? So we have to think about that when we're talking to students about these situations. If they don't have a legal guardian through the court, that caregiver, whoever it may be, right? Maybe they're at grandma's house or aunt's house. If they can no longer support that student, they can decide at any point to no longer support that student, right? So where does the student go if they get kicked out, or if that person can no longer care for that student, right? So if that's the case, I've worked with way more students experiencing homelessness than, I'd like to admit. It was honestly really surprising when I went into the core, realizing how many students are in this situation. And if they are, again, they may not consider themselves homeless or at risk of being homeless. I think until we were, filling out the FAFSA and trying to figure out how to report parent information on the FAFSA and all of that is when we were finally having those conversations of, okay, like, where are you living right now? Do you live with your parents? Do you have contact with your parents, right? Do you have a legal guardian? Do you not have a legal guardian? And through that questioning, we were finally able to get to the point of, okay, this student, they don't have a legal guardian. Let's say they don't have contact with their parents, they're kind of living from place to place. So, when you're talking to students, just being mindful and being open about their situation and also about what supports may be available to them. And we'll talk about that as well, because often these students are unaware of available support services during high school, especially if they're able to get a designation through McKinney-Vento. We'll talk about that as well. They may also be confused about their post-secondary options, as well as how to access financial aid for college. A lot of them may even think that, they will not be able to afford college because they're at this point, they're on their own. They're still going to be on their own when they're 18, 19, right? A lot of them may be thinking, okay, well, I need to start working. I need to start getting money, right? So just helping these students get to college, and not only helping these students get to college, but they may also need that additional support as they transition, right, into whatever post-secondary option that they chose. So just making sure that you're there for them through high school. If they need you, in college as well, you may be the only support that they have, the only support system, the only support person. So it's important to be informed on the resources available for these students. So let's get into that. So who are students experiencing homelessness? So according to the National Center for Homeless Education, in the 2020-2021 school year, over 1 million children and youth were experiencing homelessness and are enrolled in public schools. From that, being homeless at least once between 4th through 8th grade. Because of that, that resulted in lower math scores and around 6 fewer days of school attended, and the more school that you miss, the more that you miss out on some of the important curriculum that they need in order to, test high in math or reading or whatever the case may be, right? Also, a lot of these students are living in double up situations, which are associated with a greater risk for future homelessness. So what does that mean? So double up situations, that just means while the student and the family, they may be living in shared housing with another family or with, family friends. It could be due to, a crisis, or maybe they have just moved here. I know when my parents moved here, we all lived. It was me, my family, and 2 of my aunts, including all of our cousins. So it was kind of a triple up situation at the time. So that could be the case for a lot of students that are just coming here to America too. And because of that, it's associated with a greater risk for future homelessness if they are unable to pay for housing on their own as well. Something else to note here for students that are living in double-upped houses is that Hispanic students and African American students were also more likely to be living in these double-up situations as well. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the McKinney-Vento Act and what this means for students that are experiencing homelessness. So this act was first introduced in 1987, and this is a federal law that is in place to address education needs of youth that is experiencing homelessness by supporting students to remove barriers in attending school. So what does this mean? This could be right to immediate school enrollment, even when records are not present, right to remain in their school of origin, even if they have to move around, if it's in that student's best interest, They also receive a right to transportation to and from the school of origin, and a right to receive support for academic success as well. So if there is a student that, you think, okay, maybe they may be experiencing homelessness, even if they're not unaccompanied, trying to get them that designation so that they can get some of these rights from the McKinney-Vento Act. The earlier the better, just so that the student can, make sure that they're getting to school and getting to the school that, of their choice and that they want to go to, regardless of where they're living at the time. And just something to note, receiving services under McKinney-Vento does not necessarily mean a student is independent for financial aid purposes and for the FAFSA, so I will be going through that as well. So for definitions for financial aid purposes, the student has to meet both the definitions of homeless and unaccompanied. So let's go through those two. Homeless meaning lacking fixed, regular, adequate housing. I've discussed this a little bit in the beginning, but that could include living in shelters, parks, motels, hotels, right? Public spaces, camping grounds, cars. Or they could be temporarily living with other people because they have nowhere else to go. In my experience, that was more often than not the case, whether that be family that does not have legal guardianship over them or friends. I had quite a few that were living with their best friend, and their best friend's parents, were able to take them in. But for financial aid purposes, they also have to have the definition of unaccompanied, and that just means not living in the physical custody of a parent or guardian. So why am I telling you the definition for financial aid purposes? This is because if you do have a student that is both unaccompanied and homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless, they can be considered independent for financial aid purposes and therefore not need any parent information on the FAFSA. So homelessness on its own does not qualify the student as being independent. They have to be both homeless and not living in the physical custody of their parent or guardian. So on the FAFSA itself, there is the student homelessness question. So first they're going to see that first question, student other circumstances. So it'll say at any time on or after July 1st of 2023, was a student unaccompanied and either homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless. So if they do meet both of those definitions, they would go ahead and click yes. And then once they click yes, they also need to include who gave that student that determination of homeless and at risk of being homeless and unaccompanied. So there are quite a few people that can give that determination and designation. So the first is director, designee of an emergency or transitional shelter, street outreach program, homeless youth drop-in center, or other programs that are serving those that are experiencing homelessness. It could also be the student's high school or school district homeless liaison or designee. I feel like that's the most common that students go to in order to get that determination. The next is director designee of a project supported by a federal TRIO or Gear Up program grant. So that one was added this year. The financial aid administrator at the colleges can also give this determination. Though it was not broadcasted in previous years, it was always the case. So they decided to put it on the FAFSA this year. So, if you are with a student that's already in college, so maybe they can't go to their students or go to their high school district homeless liaison, right? Just let them know that their financial aid administrator could do that for them as well. Okay, so with student unusual circumstances, if the student, if they don't have the determination or meet the definition of experiencing homelessness and unaccompanied, but let's say they still have an unusual circumstance as one of the ones that are listed here, I'll go through them. So let's say, they left home due to an abusive or threatening environment, they were abandoned or estranged from their parents, they have refugee or asylum status and are separated from their parents, or their parents are displaced in a foreign country. They may be a victim of human trafficking or was a victim of human trafficking, could be incarcerated, or their parents are incarcerated and contact with them would pose a risk. or they are otherwise unable to contact or locate their parents, right? So if you are, going through some of these questions with students and, they don't have that determination, but you still feel like, they may have one of these situations instead, that's where the questioning the student comes in, questioning them about, okay, like, do you live at home? Do you live with your parents? Just being gentle with them as well about their living situations. And if you do determine a student is in any of these situations, I can give an example. I was helping a student my very first year in the Corps, and we were talking about financial aid, and I was helping him with his FAFSA, and he's like, hey, like, I thought I was an independent student. Why am I not? So I kind of go through why a student would be dependent and why a student could be independent. And he's like, oh, thanks for letting me know. I actually, I live on my own because I was leaving home due to an abusive or threatening environment. And, he disclosed that to me. And so I was able to let him know, okay, because of that, just letting you know that the financial aid administrator will ask for some sort of verification of that. So if you can get letters of support from your school social worker, your school counselor, if you do happen to have any police reports or anything like that, the letters of support from family members too, whatever the case may be, just so that they can move forward in completing the FAFSA. And with this year, they are able to apply as a provisionally independent student, and I'll go through what that looks like as well. So with a provisionally independent student, this allows a student to complete a FAFSA as an independent student. The student will receive an estimated student aid index as well as their estimated Pell eligibility. So if a student is in one of those situations and unusual circumstances, right, just make sure that they know that the financial aid office will then notify the students who request this provisional independent student status, and also begin that process for a dependency override. So the financial aid administrator would make that final determination. The student has to submit documentation in order to complete that dependency override process so that they can continue moving forward as an independent student for financial aid purposes. So again, just making sure that they follow up with the financial aid office, see what type of verification documents they may need, and make sure also that they retain all of the documents that are related to their dependency override, including any interviews for at least 3 years, just to make sure, just for record keeping requirements. And also any student who has obtained a dependency override for any award year preceding at an institution of higher education, for each subsequent year at the same institution, they will no longer need to, like, let's say it's a student experiencing homelessness, right? They will no longer need to get a determination every single year. They are able to carry it on from year to year. So I do just want to give an example from Schoolhouse Connection. So students may be unsure or maybe not aware of what they should include in a statement to a school to request a determination. So this is just an example from Schoolhouse Connection. If you are interested, Schoolhouse Connection has plenty of webinars, plenty of tools on helping students that are experiencing homelessness. So they would go through and fill this out. So they would say, I am an unaccompanied homeless youth as defined by the FAFSA Simplification Act, or they are unaccompanied self-supporting youth at risk of being homeless, so one or the other. Then they would go ahead and put the student's social security number, their date of birth, and then where they are currently residing. And then the financial aid administrator will use that in order to help make that determination. Okay, so next we're going to talk about students that are in care of the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, or DCFS, and we're also going to discuss the post-secondary options that are available to them. Okay, so with students in foster care, I've worked with maybe 2 students that were in foster care. A third of those that are in foster care have been removed from their home and placed in foster care multiple times. So that means that they remove from their home, they're placed in different homes every single time. They're not going to be going back to the same foster home, right? And half of these students have also experienced 3 or more foster care placements. So that just means that they are jumping from foster care placement to foster care placement. There's no continuity, right? So that also, I feel like, has a lot of the same effects on students as students that are experiencing homelessness, right? Because they never really know like where they're going to be going. Also, they, have to trust that they're going to a foster care placement that is beneficial to them, right? They may also be hesitant to share their living situations to counselors, to their friends, right? They may lack adult support, especially if they're kind of moving from place to place. If they don't have any family or any trusted adults in their life that they can lean on. If you are at their school, you may be the only adult support that they have. Also, students that are in foster care, unfortunately, they do also have lower rates of high school completion and employment. They are less likely to earn a post-secondary degree, and they also require additional support as they transition to their post-secondary plan. So just making sure that you know which students in your school are in foster care, making sure that they are aware of the resources that are available to them in order to make that successful transition into whatever post-secondary option they're interested in, or whether they end up going into a career. Just making sure that they know what's available to them, as well as with financial aid. Something that a lot of students in foster care don't know is there is that foster care question on the FAFSA. So if they are able to answer yes to that question, they are independent for FAFSA purposes. So I will talk a little bit more about that in one of the upcoming slides, but I do just want to go over some information with you all. So according to the Department of Health and Human Services, right now there are just under 400,000 students that are in foster care. Just demographic information, about half are female, about half are male. 43% of them are white students and 22% are Black and Brown students. And only 23% of eligible youth took advantage of transitional services. And I will talk about what these transitional services are. And if you are working with students that are in foster care and DCFS care, just making sure that they know what these transitional services are so that they can utilize them. So for Illinois data, as of November of 2023, there are currently just under 20,000 youth in foster care throughout Illinois. About 1,600 are over the age of 18 already, and then just under 4,000 are between the ages of 13 and 17. So just so you all know, right, these 4,000 students are coming up right now in high school and they're going to be applying for the FAFSA soon. So just making sure that you know what their options are so that you can relay that information to them. So what happens with students that are in the care of DCFS? They are assigned a caseworker. So this DCFS caseworker is required to meet with the student, the caregiver, and then also school personnel at the start of each year to help develop an academic plan to support academic achievement and also encourage post-secondary planning. So with that planning meeting, they also create a senior year plan, and every senior year plan includes a discussion of what their high school graduation requirements are, as well as a discussion of college applications, scholarship deadlines, and also during senior year, students will learn about the DCFS post-secondary service options, and I'll go through them with you all as well. So with foster care and with foster care students and the FAFSA, It is one of the dependency questions on the FAFSA. So at any time since the student turned the age of 13, were they in foster care? I do want to let you all know that the any time since the age of 13 is really important here, because even if they're no longer in foster care today, or maybe they aged out, right? If they were in foster care at any point since turning the age of 13, they're able to answer yes to this question. And if they answer yes to this question, they are able to be an independent student. And with that, they are more likely to get all of the aid that's available to them, such as the MAP grant, the Pell grant, full MAP, full Pell, and all of that. So if the student is unsure with this question, just making sure that they select that icon on the right-hand corner, just to make sure before they answer yes to that question. So we are going to go through some of the DCFS scholarship programs. So the Illinois Department of Child and Family Services, they have several programs for students that are in or have aged out of the foster care system, and I will go through each of them with you. Each program has its own criteria and eligibility requirements. In this presentation, I'll go through some of the main key points of each of the programs, but I will not be going through every single requirement. So just make sure if you have students that are interested in these, that you review all of the requirements beforehand before you apply for any of these. But students can also receive benefits from DCFS and receive MAP grant or Pell grant. So students also don't know that DCFS, they have these programs as well. And if they are an independent student for the FAFSA, they can get MAP and Pell. So just making sure that these students know that they have opportunities to get money for school so that they can finish school. So students can receive these benefits from more than one DCF program at a time as well. So let's go through each of them. So the first one we have is education and training vouchers. So this assists students with education-related expenses not covered by financial aid, so not covered by the FAFSA, MAP grant, Pell grant, or the DCFS tuition and fee waiver, which we'll go through as well, in a student's cost of attendance. So the student can receive up to $5,000 annually. They would need to complete the education and training voucher application and the FAFSA as well, or Illinois, the alternative application for Illinois financial aid, or the alternative app, annually. So just making sure that they have that on file too. And in order to continue receiving the education and training vouchers, they also need to make sure that they are meeting satisfactory academic progress as well. So let's talk about employment, job training, and apprenticeship programs. So this provides financial and supplemental services to help youth gain skills through on-the-job experience. So the student has to be in the care of DCFS, be involved in job training through a certified program such as the Job Corps, work a minimum of 20 hours a week, or participate in an apprenticeship program that's approved by the Illinois Department of Employment Security or the U.S. Department of Labor. They'll also receive a monthly payment of $178 and receive startup funding for work-related items such as tools, work clothing, etc. So they would just need to complete that program application if they are interested in this one. There's also the DCFS scholarship program. And again, with any of these that I'm talking about, I am not going through every single one of the requirements. So just make sure that you are looking into these if you do have students that are in foster care and you're interested in telling them about it. So the DCFS scholarship program, it provides a tuition and mandatory fee waiver, both to local Illinois community colleges and Illinois public universities. So it's whichever the student is, interested in going into. It provides reimbursements for books not covered by financial aid, which is going to be really helpful for a lot of students. Books can be really expensive. And they also receive a monthly board payment of $1,577. They can receive these benefits for up to 5 consecutive years. They would just need to make sure and complete an application for it between January and March 31st annually. So just making sure that they complete that annually, as well as completing their FAFSA or alternative application annually as well. With this scholarship, only 53 are awarded. But again, we heard earlier in the presentation that only 23% of DCF students take advantage of these programs. So just making sure that all of our students know, all of the students that are in DCFS know about these programs so that they can apply. There is also a youth in college or a vocational training program. So students for this program, they would enroll at a vocational school, a four-year institution, or a community college, again, whichever one they prefer. If they're enrolled at an Illinois public university, just letting them know that they receive a tuition and fee waiver, just because the public 4 years, they tend to be more expensive, right, than a vocational or community college. They would be provided with a monthly board payment of $1,506 for housing costs and personal expenses, so anything else really. And they also would get that reimbursement for books that is not covered by financial aid. And then, like with all of these, just making sure that they continue to complete the program application as well as the FAFSA and alternative application annually. And they can receive this benefit for up to 5 years or until the student is the age of 25, whichever one occurs first. Okay, and then we have the tuition and fee waiver. So the tuition and fee waiver provides a tuition and mandatory fee waived to Illinois public universities or in-district community colleges. Again, whichever one the student prefers to go to, they can receive the waiver for up to 5 years. This one is one of the only ones that is a one-time application. The student would then subsequently submit grades and schedules for each semester thereafter, just to make sure that they're meeting whatever the requirements are for the tuition and fee waiver, such as satisfactory academic progress, for example. That's why they have to submit the grades, making sure that they are at school for a certain amount of time, aka submitting their schedule. And again, like with all of the other ones, just making sure that they have that FAFSA or alternative application complete every year as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward, talk about the resources that are available for these students. So from the Chronicle of Higher Education, universities are trying to combat homelessness and food insecurities through multiple avenues. So the first way is working with local housing authority to offer housing to students that is at a lower cost. So the housing is usually going to be close to the school for the student to be able to commute, but also central enough for a student if they have employment, right, either on or off campus. Just making sure that the student has some place to live that's affordable for them, but also in a location that's good for both school and work. Also, there is Illinois House Liaisons. So each public and private institution of higher education is required to designate a member of their staff to serve as a liaison for students that are experiencing homelessness. So the designated staff member will then undergo a training, an annual training to collect certain data on the institution's homeless population as a part of their role. And they are also the point of contact for the student as well. This liaison will help the student identify the services and resources that are available to them, as well as assist them in applying for any benefits, especially the ones we were talking about earlier. So just making sure that students know about these house liaisons. And also the last way that we're going to discuss on this presentation, or on this slide, sorry, is creating scholar programs. So a lot of colleges are creating a scholars program that is like a cohort model. It puts all of the foster youth enrolled into the university into the same classes. Also, they are assigned a college coach to help them thrive independently while at college and for life after college as well. And these coaches, they aid them both in academic but also financial and sometimes emotional support, as well as connect them to resources and and departments on campus and in the community as well. So just making sure that if you do have a student in either of these situations, that they are looking into colleges that have these scholars programs. So just want to give y'all an update on special circumstance documentation. So I did briefly touch on this earlier in the presentation, but institutions can now use documentation from a previous year as acceptable documentation for another year. So I talked about this with the students that are experiencing homelessness, right? If they get that determination 1 year, they are able to actually use it for all of their subsequent years now. That did not used to be the case. So this is going to help a lot of students, especially with removing that roadblock of, okay, we have to do this every single year to get the determination just so that we can apply as an independent student. That is no longer going to be the case. Again, it can be used from year to year, as well as different institutions can use documentation from another institution as acceptable documentation when verifying a student's circumstance. So if one institution was able to verify their circumstance using documentation, then another institution could use that same documentation when verifying that student's circumstance. So not only can it be used year to year, but it can also be used from institution to institution. So resources beyond financial aid for students. So there are also tools on our student portal. So we did have a letter that ISAC updated. The student portal website includes links to resources beyond financial aid now, so such as housing and utilities, food resources, right, like local food pantries, medical care, Illinois college food pantries as well, so specifically on college campuses, child and dependent care if they need it, as well as how to go through special circumstance, professional judgment, dependency overrides, and how to help a student through that process as well. So if you are working with students that are in these situations, making sure that they also know that the student portal is there for them as well for those resources. So there's also SNAP benefits for students. So SNAP is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It provides support for low-income people and families to purchase food. So students may be eligible for this as well. So two main considerations for this is income and expenses, as well as the number of people who live in the household. So, you know, if you're working with students that are in foster care or if they're experiencing homelessness, right, they likely have low to no income, or you know, their number of people who live in their household might just be them, right? So Illinois does have some additional requirements for individuals and families, just making sure that you look those up as well. But it can be available for students that are enrolled at least half-time in a 2-year or a 4-year institution. They may be eligible for SNAP benefits. So eligibility requirements, just to go through those. So they have to be enrolled at least half-time in an institution of higher education. So we discussed that on the last slide. And then meet at least one of these exemptions. So worked at least 20 hours a week in a paid employment, participate in state or federally financed work-study program, participate in an on-the-job training program. So that could be for a trade, for example, for an apprenticeship. They have to care for a child under the age of 6. They are a single parent enrolled full-time in college and taking care of a child under 12, or a program under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. So just making sure that they meet all other SNAP eligibility requirements before you are, you know, helping a student with applying for SNAP. Okay, so there are also a good amount of scholarships out there for students that are experiencing homelessness. So the Chicago Coalition for Homeless, they have their own website as well as their own scholarships. So if you do have a student that is in the Chicagoland area or looking to go to the Chicagoland area for school, making sure that they look up the Chicago Coalition for Homeless scholarships. Schoolhouse Connection, we discussed them a little bit earlier, but they also have scholarships available for students. FastWeb, so they have scholarships for orphaned, parentless students, students that are experiencing homelessness. So making sure that they go through all of these avenues, as well as the Horatio Alger Association. They also have a lot of scholarships for students that are experiencing homelessness. So just making sure that they know what's out there for them, how to research for these scholarships, and apply to as many as possible, just so that they can have enough money to actually be able to go to school and keep their retention as well, making sure that they go to school for all of the years that they need to go to school for. And then scholarships for our foster care students. So we have Foster Care to Success. So that is a scholarship program. They have scholarships and grants, as well as FastWeb. FastWeb is a great scholarship website, but they also have different avenues that you can look through, such as the students that are experiencing homelessness or students who received foster care. So making sure that you look into all of those. Okay, so we are pretty much done with the content of today's presentation. I do want to shout out some resources for you all. So we do have the First Generation Scholars Network, speaking about students who are unaccompanied and homeless or self-supporting at risk of being homeless, or students that are in DCFS or foster care. A lot of these students may also be first gen. So if you are helping these students, making sure that they know what first gen means, knowing that there's a lot of support out there for first gen students, as well as this. This is something new that ISAC came out with. If you do have a sizable first gen population on campus, just making sure that they join. Joining allows students to connect with a mentor, also find different first generation programs on campuses that they're interested in, as well as joining in different check-in events with other first generation students. And last but not least, letting them know that services for this are free and that they don't need to do anything. They don't need to apply to anything. They just need to click the Join Now button and just fill out the online form. Okay, and we also have our first ever first gen symposium. So it is on Monday, March 11th at North Central College in Naperville, Illinois. From what I've heard, though, we are already past the wait list. So if you have not already registered, I'm so sorry, but I believe that our wait list also has closed. But if everything goes well, we will be having this annually. So if you are a professional who was a first gen student, or you have a lot of first gen students, right, we want to hear from you as well. So if you do, or if you can scan this QR code, this is for a display that we're going to be doing at the symposium. It includes a picture, as well as where you graduated from, and just being able to display all of the different first gen students that we have. You can go ahead and scan that QR code and submit that photo. Again, it's going to be for a display at the symposium. Okay, so we also have a FAFSA communication toolkit from us here at ISAC. So this is a resource guide to assist y'all in communication with families, students, as well as best practices regarding the changes to this year's financial aid applications. So just making sure that your students and parents know about the changes to the 24-25 FAFSA, as well as the different terms. So you can use this guide to connect with students and families. We have emails to families in both English and Spanish, emails to volunteers if you have volunteers coming for FAFSA workshops. We also have robocall scripts in both English and Spanish, flyers, social media posts. So whatever you are using to tell students about the 24-25 FAFSA, and you're just not sure about like the wording, or maybe you want to provide more things in Spanish, just making sure to check out our FAFSA toolkit. Okay, and then finally, our financial aid application completion initiative. So this is through our gift assistance program or GAP access, where students are, or at least the high schools can track students who have completed the FAFSA, the alternative application, or the opt-out waiver completion through this. So what happens is ISAC, we receive the rosters for public schools from ISB. And then it populates all of your students. And then as students complete FAFSAs, alternative apps, and opt-out waivers, it gets put into Gap Access and you're able to track it there. I do just want to note that things will likely not start populating for the FAFSA alternative app until the ICERs get sent out. If you all do not know already, FSA has come out with communication on the ICERs or the institutional student information records and the FAFSA submission summaries. They're not going to be processed until March. So if you are using Gap Access and you're wondering, hey, how come I can't see completion? Well, you know, FAFSA's been out for a month now. Just letting you know that you probably won't see things populated until things can actually process on FSA's end. Okay, so for our CE and PT requests, we do ask that you provide feedback for today's session by completing an evaluation. So we're using a QR code this time. If you are unable to scan this QR code for whatever reason, you can also email us at isac.outreachtraining@illinois.gov. I'll be posting that after having this up for a bit. You'll need to request CE credits or PD hours by completing that evaluation. We do give everyone 2 days time, so by 2:15 at 4:30 p.m., which is close of business for us. And just to note, if you are requesting PD hours, just making sure that you give us your Illinois Educator Identification Number, and there is a question within the survey to include that. So just making sure if you are requesting those PD hours that you include that as well. I'm going to keep this up for a bit. But other than that, thank you for joining. If you do have any other questions, we will keep this open for another few minutes here. Go ahead and put them through the Q&A.
Having an error message.
Let me go ahead and take a look and get a link going here in a chat feature. Just give me 1 minute here. Thank you.
Sorry, what did you say, Tommy?
It appears that the SurveyMonkey is not working, so they're saying it's an error. So the QR code is not.
You know what's crazy about that is I just opened it like right before this presentation, and now I just tried again and it's not working. So I don't know why.
I got a link here. I can put it in a chat feature
Okay.
for everybody real quick. Let me just go ahead and open that up.
Yeah, go ahead and just use the link instead. That's so weird. I literally just tried it before this presentation and it worked. So sorry about that, y'all.
Okay, link's been posted in the chat feature. Bottom right-hand corner of your screen should be like a little iMessage bubble. Let us know if that is working for you all. Great, seeing folks saying it works. All right, we'll go ahead and stay on the line for just another minute or two. Let that people get access to that link in the chat feature, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Make sure you complete that to get your CE and PD hours, and we will talk to you all later. Thank you.